have an update on the billions of dollars being taken.
Scammers, as we know, are becoming more and more sophisticated.
Lying in bed, wondering how I could tell my wife that we'd lost everything.
Our mission is to protect consumers worldwide from scams. Cybercrime is going through the roof, and we need to take action fast.
We cannot keep on working in silos, and we've heard it here a couple of times already today. I think GASA is bringing this cross-sector perspective that is so much lacking in most of the events.
I'm hoping to start finding ways to help take the information I have and really help people.
These type of events are finally going to hear we took action instead of we need to take action and make the world a little bit better.
Welcome, everybody. My name is George Abraham. I'm the Managing Director of the Global Anti-Scam Alliance, and I would like to bid you all a very, very warm welcome. For those who do not know the Global Anti-Scam Alliance, I want to briefly tell a little bit about us before I introduce our panelists of today. Again, welcome to the Global Anti-Scam Meetup. For those who do not know us, our mission is to protect consumers worldwide from online scams. And we do that by bringing together all the stakeholders to share intelligence. We are organizing a lot of meetups like this one, but also have a best practice blogs and have actual working groups to share more knowledge and also work on concrete solutions to better protect consumers. We facilitate a lot of networking. We are organizing 3 summits also this year, one in Asia, one in Europe, and one in America, but also have chapters where on a national level, people share intelligence and work on local solutions to better protect people from scams. We do a lot of research. We publish more than 30 research reports every year, and we're launching more and more solutions to which I will get back at the end of this webinar. We don't do that alone. We do that with many members. We have more than 120 organizations supporting us, and many of them are today in the room. Finally, before we start, I would like to mention that the Chatham House rule applies. You can use the information being shared in this webinar, but you cannot quote the participants directly. If you like to do so, please reach out to us. Happy to help you. And finally, please be aware that this session is recorded. So if you have a question, the question might be shown on screen with your name. So please be aware of that. And without further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists. I would like to start with John. Would you briefly mind introducing yourself?
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. My name is John Kerwin. I'm the head of risk containment and risk prevention here at TikTok. Our team's role is to essentially enforce all of our community guidelines on the platform and remove any problematic content. So great to be here.
Thank you, John. Abigail, you have some internet problems. I'm glad to see you. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Abigail Bishop, and I work at Amazon leading our external relations on scam prevention around the world.
Glad to have you, Abigail. Paul, would you mind?
Thanks.
Sure. George, thanks for having me. My name is Paul Ben. I'm here to represent the International Banking Federation. I'm the chair of the Fraud and Scams Working Group. The IBFed is banking associations around the world. So I work at the American Bankers Association, my day job. That includes Australian, Canadian, European Banking Federation. So all the banks banding together trying to figure out how to combat scams and fraud.
So you have a 24-hour job during the day, America, and then the rest of the world during the night. Exactly. Saeed, very welcome. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Thank you for having us. Thank you so much. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Saeed Al-Kabi, Director of International Cooperation Department and the Ministry of Interior of the United Arab Emirates.
Thank you very much, Saeed. Justin.
You're welcome.
Thank you, George. Happy to be here. Justin Davis with Somos, Senior Director of Global Public Policy and Industry Relations. Somos, we are the numbering administrator for the North American Numbering Plan, as well as toll-free numbering. We also administer the reassigned numbers database, as well as provide solutions driven around API SIM-based solutions, as well as bring intelligence.
Thank you very much, Justin. And last but certainly not least, Giacomo.
Thanks, Yuri. Hi, everybody. I'm Giacomo Nicchiruscone. I work at Google, and thank you, Yuri, for an invitation, and the GASA team for getting us all together. I've been focusing most of my career at Google, focused on protecting users, and now I'm laser focused on signal sharing, signal exchanges, and what we call collective defense. And I represent here the work of a lot of people at Google working under the hood, folks like Andre Naumann, Jean-Jacques Sael, Xavier Morales, and others. So very happy to be here and to learn a lot of things today with you all.
Thank you. Thank you for all joining. Also, a very warm welcome to our audience. Feel free to use the chat to introduce yourself and chat amongst each other. If you have questions to our panelists, next to the chat button, you can also find questions, and you can ask your questions there. And at the end of this webinar, we will try to get back to your questions. Abigail, the goal of this webinar is to look a little bit into the future of 2026. What do we expect to happen? What is your prediction for this year regarding scams? Would you like to share?
Couple of predictions. One is that bad actors are only going to get more savvy, are going to continue to get more creative, and some of the advent of technology innovations are going to further scale and enable their tactics, unfortunately. At the same time, I also predict that we are going to see unprecedented cooperation and collaboration across sectors, jurisdictions, and players on the good guy side, working together to thwart those bad actors. We have seen a number of different signals of that opportunity in 2025, and we are set up, I think, to really maximize those in 2026. You see the UN tuning into this more than ever. You see governments all over the world really prioritizing helping their citizens stay safe. And those things, I think, are going to really be the opportunity we have in front of us for this year.
Thank you very much, Abigail. Giacomo, I mean, you work for Google. Google sees a lot. Which trends or expectations do you have?
Sure, and I have to plus one everything Abigail said, as always. But I will say that so there's not going to be a dull moment this year. I can mention a few trends or things that we're seeing, and just also a reminder that we are starting to publish the trends that we're seeing on a regular basis. We started on a quarterly basis, our Google Scams Bulletin, and we hopefully soon we'll be able to publish it every month. So hopefully this can be of help to the wider ecosystem. So just to go through a couple of very practical things that we are seeing in terms of trends. Probably most of you are aware of these, but just just to bring some color. So online job scams, impersonation of well-known companies, official career pages, fake recruiter profiles. So this is an area of interest. Extortion via negative reviews. So what we call extortion through review bombing is something also top of mind. The double whammy of fraud recovery scams, where there's a fraud happening and then there's a second fraud happening on top of that, which is interesting and terrible at the same time. And now we're just off the winter break, and so the seasonal holiday scam is something that has been a lot on people's minds. And also there's multiple ways that we'll see this year evolving. For example, the areas of adversarial attempts to manipulate our AI answers, which are now available on search. Agentic AI mimicking human patterns, human behavior, definitely making scams easier to perpetrate. Focus on impersonation scams, and then we're seeing these cybercrime groups really industrializing the way they operate, especially in the payment space. So yeah, so it's not going to be a dull year, and we're here for it. But yeah, so keep an eye out for our scams bulletins. We're excited to do more there to share what we're seeing.
Thank you, Giacomo. And maybe for those who are interested, could you share the link where people can subscribe or find your trends in the chat?
Absolutely, I'll do that.
John, Giacomo already said, yeah, I mean, scammers will try to manipulate AI. What is TikTok seeing in the market?
For sure, this is going to be one of my core points. That's probably unique to social media and the challenges we're seeing with user-generated content. Looking in addition to the traditional table stakes challenges of social engineering, non-delivery, we really see AI as a force multiplier for scams. So it's just become so cheap and easy to make convincing, credible, synthetic media, that it really acts as an accelerant. So really this also arose traditional kind of common sense signals that users have kind of been naturally trained to spot over time. We can see a lot of trends around celebrity impersonation, for example, where scammers essentially exploit parasocial trust. So if it's a convincing, credible personality, then it must be true, right? So this is regularly exploited as part of the scam activity. As always, scammers target users at their lowest ebb. So this could be in terms of addiction services, financial areas, health, retirement, the list goes on. And really what we see is, AI being, targeted towards these verticals to grab users at vulnerable moments. So really increasingly what we also see is networks of coordinated accounts as well. So sharing infrastructure and coordinating attacks across borders, across surfaces and different verticals, whether that's search, live, or long form video. Scammers work across all of these. So really now what we see is a need to look at more network level work, understand the actor behind the efforts. And really, what we're seeing is that content moderation alone is just not enough. We just won't keep up with the scale of AIGC or the scale at which these actors can, build up their efforts. So really what we need to focus on is earlier detection, actor level signals, and more, system level friction in terms of upstream controls as actors try and enter our ecosystems.
Thank you, John. Justin, John was naming already, the networks. You work for a lot of telecom networks. What is someone seeing in the market?
Yeah, from the telecom standpoint, we certainly see a lot as it relates to impersonation. We're seeing an increase specifically around impersonation that leads to authorized push payments. Again, from that perspective, they'll impersonate being a bank. They'll create the relationship, so on and so forth. So certainly we're seeing a lot around APP. We're seeing certainly a lot around account takeover, SIM swap, a lot through SMS. Here in the US, this is midterm season. From that perspective, we do see a lot with regards to impersonation around political side of things, asking for donations, texts that come across with a link specifically in them, so on and so forth. And then certainly around children, there's certainly an increase with regards to establishing relationships with children that leads to many different things. A lot of that through gaming, a lot of that through social media, a lot of that through again messaging directly, so on and so forth. So these are certainly things that we're seeing a lot of increase, and then the stuff that we're continuing to combat. I think what we'll also see is hopefully a lot more aggressive work based on the NRAs. See a lot from the administrations with regards to holding more accountable, more accountability. Certainly identifying the enablers. It's not just the criminals; it's also who's enabling the criminals. So I think specifically within the telecom side, we're going to see a lot more around that.
Okay, I see a lot of nodding heads. Thank you, Justin. Paul, I mean, Justin was already naming authorized push payment. The banks are in the unfortunate position that, well, they're right of boom, to call it so. What do you see happening? And please share.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. Our fear is just as, industries are leveraging AI to improve their efficiencies, we're going to see the same thing with the scam compounds. We saw major scam compounds takedowns occurring. We think there's international focus on that. The scammers are going to have to figure out how do they operate with fewer people and more and less out in the open. And so I think they're going to use AI. I think they can use automated AI to set the hook. What I mean by that is, having the initial conversations and then they get a lead and then they bring someone in. So they're going to probably reduce the amount of personnel they need, leverage AI in that case. Our fear is we're also going to see the deep fakes, not just to enable or not just to cause the scam, but to enable the scam. So unwitting money mules. So how do you engage with a relationship and then use that person's bank account then to receive the funds, which makes it much harder when the money's going to like a long-term bank account with a good person who is just enabling the scam, whether they're witting or unwitting. It makes it a lot more challenging for us. And then finally, people have said a lot of other things, but one of the things that I am concerned about is the growth of agentic AI. I think people are going to be trying to use those to shop, and they're going to say, "Oh, go get me the lowest price on this." And there's going to be a lot of websites and scams that are built to look exactly like a legitimate website, and your agentic AI will go buy it, and then it will never arrive. And so that's going to cause a lot of, I think, chaos and consternation among merchants, payment providers, and consumers.
Thank you very, very much, Paul. Saeed, I hear nearly every panelist named AI. What do you see in the United Arab Emirates regarding scams and AI?
Actually, from a law enforcement perspective, I think scammers will become more organized, more technical, and more convincing. So they will use technology even more. Artificial intelligence will help them to create fake videos, fake voices, and very realistic messages. So this makes impersonation scams harder to detect because victims think they are taking to a real person or a trust organizations. Also, scammers will attack victims through several channels at the same time. They may send email, follow up with text messages or phone calls. This creates pressure and makes the scam feel urgent and legitimate. I think scammers will continue to exploit current events and crises. They use news, economy uncertainty, or global conflicts to create fake investment offers or fake job opportunities or messages pretending to come from authorized or well-known companies. Another important trend is that scams will be more international. Criminal group operate across borders using money mules and online platforms in different countries. This makes investigation more complex and requires strong international cooperation. So overall, scammers will be faster, more professional, and harder to trace. This means law enforcement must focus not only on investigations, but also on prevention, early detection, and close cooperation with partners at the national and international level. So this is what I think GASA are doing now, and we would like to thank them for their efforts. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Saeed. Paul, we're not only discussing what we have seen happening in the market and what we expect, but also, what are the New Year resolutions? Saeed named internationalization, money mules. what are the New Year's resolutions of the International Banking Federation?
So I think Abigail mentioned it. The coordination internationally is going to be, I think, what we're going to focus on. I love the UK Home Office leading the UN Global Summit and getting engagement from Canada, several other companies. I know Google is a sponsor as well. Amazon's a sponsor of that summit. So I think that's important. I think from the banking side, we stood up this fraud and scams working group because we think we need to share better. So we're working in the States on how do we share accounts that are being used with scams and fraud. And I actually just had a call yesterday with some colleagues in the UK and here in the US on how do we do that internationally? How do we find that those accounts that are being used to accomplish scams and fraud, and how do we put friction into payments that go to them? We really want to focus on preventing the flow of funds versus trying to recover the funds after effect. We don't want someone to go through the loss of their life savings. If we can stop that in the first place, that would be great. And we're seeing engagement. We're going to need help from the government to do that. We're going to need some loosening of the restrictions of what we can share. We're going to need some protection from liability when people acting in good faith. But I think everyone's willing to have that conversation. So I would hope in the new year, at a minimum, we're going to see sharing of contacts across banks internationally, so that if fraud occurs, you'll know who to reach out to. And maybe in the best case scenario, we'll actually start sharing, account level information and try and stop that flow of funds.
Got it. I think we all agree international cooperation is essential. And Paul, you were referring to the UN Fraud Summit in March, which amongst others is supported by, I believe, Google and Amazon, but also the UK government, Canada. Abigail, would you like to share what are your plans for this year?
Absolutely. And don't forget, George, GASA is also supporting the UN summit. So I know you're very humble, but I have to call that out as well because I'm so pleased. So a couple of key things we're focusing on for 2026 include one, continuing to build on the momentum that we saw in 2025 when it comes to coordination, whether it's on the policy side, working on initiatives driven by the UN, but also other governments as well. The UK is working on their sort of fraud strategy 2.0 right now. We've just launched a first of its kind national strategy in the US. You see other countries all over the world working on similar efforts, setting up scam centers for their respective jurisdictions. This is really an incredible moment. And outside of the policy side, you see incredible coordination infrastructure being built in the likes of the Global Signal Exchange or the National Elder Fraud Coordination Center, or name it. There's a number of places to go to share information that didn't exist previously. So there's a tremendous opportunity there. I think the second piece from Amazon perspective is going to, no surprise to many here, is going to be really focused on the customer or the consumer. And so while we have for years now, similar to Google, shared our trends through our scam trends alerts, we've done initiatives to educate consumers. Most recently, this week, we actually launched the CyberFlex initiative in Japan, which is geared towards educating young adults who are increasingly susceptible alongside the Global Cyber Alliance. We also want to look within our own spans of control at how we can serve our customers better. How can we make sure that customers can feel confident that they're receiving a communication from Amazon, that they are able to authenticate, that they can trust what the communications are that they're receiving, as the number one cited scam that our customers report back to us are impersonations of our brand. And so the more that we can focus on mitigating that on behalf of our customers is really where we're going to turn our attention to this year. And I think other companies and tech organizations are going to be looking internally at what they can similarly do better on behalf of their customers. And we're going to see that trend continue throughout 26. And certainly that's a priority for Amazon moving forward.
Abigail, also a question from the audience. Amazon is supporting a lot of international corporations. You're already naming also the Global Cyber Alliance, and I know you do a lot more. Where do you think Alignment International needs to improve, or what else is on your to-do list? Maybe not for 2026, but for 2027.
Yeah, I think we'll I hypothesize, I think in like 2024 that we're going to continue to see sort of disparate initiatives sort of harmonize and come together in different ways. Some are they're going to link arms in some instances. In some instances, initiatives will sort of sunset and lean into others. I suspect that moving forward, we're going to see that trend continue. If you'll recall, for those who've been plugged into this space for a while now, we had a lot of different organizations espousing their ability to track data or provide insights, but there wasn't really an integrator or an infrastructure to funnel those inputs into. And now we have the makings of those, and we'll continue to see, I think, sort of not to channel Tolkien too much, but like I don't know that we'll get to like one ring to rule them all in some of these initiatives. I think that there's a few rings that could work, but I do think that we'll continue to see the push for synergy. And I think all of us should be sort of setting the bar as we're hearing about new initiatives, whether they're starting small and, you know, very acutely focused on either a problem or a geography, that we'll get to a place where we'll see more of their intent to integrate, that they are building for purpose to coordinate with ongoing initiatives. And that's really for me, as I look at being, you know, efficient in the way that we're spending our times, is while you're focused on something specific, how are you thinking about how the specific work that you're doing fits into the bigger picture of moving pieces across the scam prevention ecosystem.
Thank you very much, Abigail. And I want to go back to your one ring to rule them all, which I agree will never exist. But together with Google and also Amazon and several of our other members, last year we launched the Global Signal Exchange. Giacomo, maybe you can share a little bit more about the Global Signal Exchange, and then also share what else you have in mind for this year.
Yeah, for sure. So generally speaking, at the company level, like the strategy really doesn't change. As you know, like the mission, Google's mission is really to organize the world information and making it universally accessible and useful. So core to that mission is the relevance and the quality of the information. And when we're talking about scamming or fraudulent content, it really goes against, you know, the company's mission. So the key pillars stay there. So we want to protect users from harm. We want to deliver reliable information to users. And we want to collaborate through dedicated programs and partnerships. And this is where, you know, GASA comes in. This is where we can, you know, scale the industry-leading practices we've been building and the work with the Global Signal Exchange through like collaborative programs with everybody on this call. And so there is this, you know, the sweet spot of combining technology, enforcement, education. I actually pinged on the group on the main chat the Be Scam Ready offering that we have for folks to take a look at. Somebody asked the question about vulnerable users, you know, and awareness in general, individual awareness on the topic. So if I had to sort of, if there's one word for 2026, it's really like the year is action. The word is action. The year is the year of action. And so as other folks on this call already mentioned that, Paul and Abigail and others, it's really about, based on the exchange of intel we've been talking and, you know, realizing in 2025, this is a year where things will get, you know, real pretty fast. And so through the Global Signal Exchange, Yuri, which you just mentioned, like last year we overcame, you know, huge challenges on how we shared intelligence across industries, across borders, sectors. And so this is when we take that intelligence and put it to use. And so I would say for 2026, the goal is to establish together, hopefully, what, you know, we're putting down as collective defense, a collective defense framework and then put into action through the GSE. There's a corny sentence I'm starting to use, which is like the protection for one becomes the protection for all of us, right? And that can happen through the GSE by exchanging the knowledge, the signals that we have, and to go to the source of the problem, as we are most of us like victims of what's happening.
Thank you very much, Giacomo. And I indeed think that the Global Signal Exchange, which we launched together with our members last year, and Oxford Information Labs, is a great example that we really can share data, and we can also really make a difference. If you wouldn't mind sharing the domain in the chat, we got some questions that would be great. Thank you very much, Giacomo. Moving to John. John, what are TikTok's New Year's resolutions to counter scams?
Look, first of all, really echo the sentiments in terms of, investing more in upstream signals and, cross industry sharing. So, really double down on those points. So really a key part of our strategy is to detect, these issues and frauds earlier, not just remove them faster after the fact. So we'll really be deepening our investment in those areas. So when we talk about on-platform signals, this is all of the behavioral patterns, account creation signals, network analysis. So we've got huge investments on our own in-house engineering and analysis teams that we're going to build out in 2026. We also obviously see fraud isn't just a policy or a detection issue. It's like sometimes a fundamental societal or product design issue. So everybody here sees different slices of the same scam. So really that goes back to how we share information with one another. So we're obviously excited to explore the GSE initiative with our bodies like Stop Scams UK. All of these give us unique signals we can explore and understand how it's useful for our own platform. So, I think really what we're aiming to do is to, ingest that feedback, those signals. Like part of that is also our efforts when it comes to law enforcement outreach, societal stakeholders, NGOs. A lot of these bodies can give us qualitative feedback that we just can't get elsewhere in terms of what they're seeing in their specific markets or their specific sectors. So synthesizing all that is a key part of what we're doing. And we aim to really build that out next year. The other major efforts that we need to focus more on, I would say, is around safety by design. So typically enforcement alone is obviously necessary, but the best way to actually stop fraud or to stop abuse is to make it impossible for it to happen in the first place, right? So this includes things like how we onboard new users, user verification, graduated access to higher risk features that might have monetization components, for example, and basically extra limits on throttles around that are risk proportionate and targeted towards, likely bad actors, while we better understand whether they should be removed from the platform entirely. So these are all more graduated controls that we can employ before just flat out account suspension or content removal that we feel give us more leverage. So that these will all be focus areas.
Thank you, John. A question. I mean, you named several things you're going to invest in and work on, and I think that's great because there is not one solution to counter scams. We have to invest in many things. But what is the thing you are really looking forward to, or believe will really be a big thing for TikTok in this year, if you can share it?
Of course. I probably one maybe it's table stakes at this stage that I didn't actually explicitly mention is our investment in our AI infrastructure. We talked a lot about how AI is a threat. It's also a huge opportunity from a detection and an automation standpoint. So this alone is just a huge investment. We're talking about engineering teams, infrastructure, all of that TikTok are actively investing in. So I think the number is, to 2 billion or so in 2026 alone to build out these controls. This will really help us detect better at scale and faster. So I think it's about leaning into AI and the opportunities that provides. That ironically will help us detect AI generated content better. So increasing our signals and intelligence around those areas will all create a feedback loop that will help us continue to scale. So that's really the major focus, I would say.
Yeah. Thank you very much, John. Justin, we heard John also say about user authentication. I think it was yesterday in the news that they rounded up a scam compound, found 40,000 SIM cards. What do you see happening in the telecom industry in 2026? Are we going to create more measures to stop that kind of abuse?
Yeah, yeah, certainly from that perspective, there is work being done and focuses specifically around that. A lot of it has to do from a SIM perspective, based on the regulation associated within a country. There are different measures that are taken with regards to the quantity of SIM cards that an individual can purchase, with regards to biometric use of SIM cards, so on and so forth. And then there are countries where, again, the availability is out there. At any quantity. Certainly a focus from this year, and in February there's a key event that'll be happening here within the US, is around network APIs. From a network API perspective, utilizing the work that's been done through GSMA around Open Gateway, this is real-time information based on SIM or number relationship to a SIM, so on and so forth, that is going to hopefully be a game changer with regards to, again, the amount of information that we can identify within a short period of time, whether that's number verification, again, the tenure of a number associated with a SIM, which gives us the ability to do things even further along the lines of SIM swap and identifying SIM swap more quickly and efficiently. KYC match certainly becomes integral associated with that. And there are more attributes associated with network APIs that can be introduced and leveraged. So in February, with partners Aduna Global and GBG, along with the three major carriers within the US, that will be launching here within the US. Certainly there are other countries that are looking at this. I know Europe, specifically the UK, is looking into some of this. But a lot of it has to do with IP transition. IP transition is key and critical. There's a lot of great tools out there. There's a lot of great tools within the telecom industry that's been introduced. Unfortunately, it's like trying to stop water with a screen door, right? The problem is that water's going to find a way. TDM a lot of times is that way. A lot of these solutions are built on IP-based functionality. As long as there's still a lot of TDM within the ecosystem, that creates a vulnerability. Within the US, we have sunset 2G and 3G. So from a wireless perspective, certainly that has transitioned. On the fixed wireline side of things, there's still a large amount of TDM, and we do have IP transition is certainly a proposal from SOMO specifically to the FCC, again, to be able to drive more IP transition, drive away from TDM, so on and so forth. Within the UK, I know there's the flip of that. There's an acceleration, I believe 2027 is the date that they're shooting for with regards to their TDM infrastructure on the wireline side. But within all of Europe, there's still a lot of 2G and 3G that is still within the ecosphere there in Europe. So IP transition is certainly one of the things that we collectively need to work towards pushing a lot more quickly. Unfortunately, some of these network elements have been out there since the days when disco was a rage, right? So they've been out there for a long time. They've lived their life. It's time to retire them and advance beyond those. Beyond that is certainly, again, that cross-sector sharing. So we are working with Global Signal Exchange as well. That brings us into a telecom and online sharing of information, and that is key and critical. There's a lot that's coming in through GSE, through Google, through all of those that are part of Global Signal Exchange that have numbering attributes associated with that, bringing that numbering information to the telecom side, and then in the reverse, sharing that back towards the GSE ecosystem is going to be critical, because now we're not just casting multiple nets, we're casting one massive net. And so that is certainly a focus with regards to SOMO specifically and working with GSE, as well as CDA, the within the UK. It's another critical organization that we're working with. And then certainly the enabler side of things, holding the enablers accountable. Go ahead.
That one indeed also was named before. I think that's a crucial one, catching the scammers. I think it was also Giacomo saying that. Thank you very much, Justin. I want to give Paul the floor because there's a big chance, I think, for indeed cross-sector cooperation. Paul, would you like to share your ideas for the future?
Thanks, George. I mean, it's exciting to hear the things Justin's talking about. You can imagine a world where, and one of the goals that we have certainly is to focus on the prevention, the flow of funds, where if you can share banks, information with banks in real time as a payment's being processed. And we know there's the scam call capability that GSMA, is set up in the UK, where you can share metadata around a call, like how long is the call, with the call incoming to a person, is the call from a mobile phone. And then now if you start adding in things like, was the SIM recently swapped? Has the SIM been in line with the number? Has somehow that SIM been degraded, moved from an iPhone down to an LG phone, which is an unusual way to go. All of those signals, if they come into the point when someone's now accessing, a banking app and then trying to make a payment that's, out of normal, that gives a bank a lot of information to make a decision on whether they want to go forward. What people forget is when people are trying to make transactions on, in the financial system, the criminals coach these people through these transactions. They don't come up and say, I want to send money to a criminal. They come up and give a very legitimate story of why they're trying to make that transaction. So a bank has a hard time of, stopping those transactions. But if they have all this additional data, it gives us a lot more flexibility, a lot more defendability if we want to take some action to stop that. So I think that type of cross-sector sharing, regardless of what country you're in, is going to be critical to really enable the stopping of the flow of funds. And so we're excited to see that happen, and really interested. Again, the move from copper lines to IP lines is going to be critical to enable that. But it's something that we're definitely very interested to see move forward.
Thank you very much. Saeed, several named the need or the plan to catch more scammers. You work for law enforcement in the United Arab Emirates. Can you share a little bit on your vision?
Actually, our new year resolution for 2026 to stay ahead of scammers by being faster and more proactive and more connected. I think first, prevention is the key priority. We want to improve how we detect scams early by using better technology and intelligence, including digital tools and AI where possible. At the same time, we will continue training officers so they understand new scam methods such as deepfake and online impersonation. Second, awareness is very important. Many victims fall for scams because they don't realize how advanced these crimes have become. In 2026, we want to focus more on educating the public in simple and practical ways, so people know how to recognize scams and where to report them quickly. Third, speed matters. Speed matters. When a scam is reported, acting fast can make a big difference. Our goal is to improve response time, quickly secure evidence, and work closely with banks and other partners to stop the financial losses as early as possible. Finally, cooperation is essential. Fraud is no longer limited to one city or one country. Criminal groups operate across borders. So in 2026, we want to strengthen cooperation with international law enforcement, private companies, and other authorities. Sharing information and intelligence is a key to stopping organized scam networks. In short, our resolution for 2026 is to combine prevention, public awarenesses, fast response, and strong cooperation to better protect people from scams.
Thank you very much, Saeed. I mean, I think we all agree, fast response, raising awareness. Abigail, Giacomo, I know both Google and Amazon have invested quite a lot in user education. Any of you like to share what you did last year and how you like to continue next year, or this year, I should say?
Yeah, I think we're going to continue to do some of the things that I cited earlier of sharing information out, making sure that we're arming people with the best information we can on the latest trends that we're seeing and those types of things. But I also think that you know, we'll be looking for opportunities to further strengthen sort of that signal through the noise. We're very sensitive to consumers who are hearing a lot of different directives and cautions and things akin to that. And the more that we can streamline, simplify, and keep things as accessible as possible, we'll be looking for ways to continue to get that a little bit more refined. The other thing I'll say is, like, outside of education, which we fully intend to continue to do, we also need to protect our customers ourselves, and that we'll continue to educate our customers, but we will further try to protect them on their behalf, and we'll help make sure that the onus is not just on the customer to protect themselves. It's also on us as a company who cares about the customer experience very deeply, that we continue to find ways to inoculate our customers and other consumers from threats.
Okay. Thank you very much, Abigail. Giacomo?
Yeah, just wanted to plus one again. Especially the last part of Abigail's. There's a limit to. I think there's a limit to. We recognize a limit to education. Although we are seeing some really good results on education provided to vulnerable populations. So I mentioned it earlier. We have the Be Scam Ready game, which I encourage everybody to check it out and let us know about your feedback and what you're seeing. And we'll be doubling down on that this in 2026 this year to expand into more languages, more markets. But yes, the focus is back to what I said earlier: is action, and the action against the perpetrators, against the assets and infrastructure enabling the scams. That's sort of the North Star.
Giacomo, then let me stay with you. When you say action, if you would be allowed to make one wish for this year, which wish would you have to really make a difference?
Yes, so I guess it's really like using the signals exchange on the GSC to drive the actions. And as I said, like, how do we prioritize the biggest return on the efforts needed to take down these assets and infrastructure? I would like to see, well, you are going to see, because we are investing on this, like more litigation happening, more yes, so essentially like more actions based on this information, and in collaboration with law enforcement, lawmakers, and yeah, really attack sort of take down those critical assets and infrastructure that is being used. We're also working, with lawmakers on making it clear that intelligence sharing and actions taken to support consumers are compatible with other legislations that are focused on things like data protection and competition. So we think there's momentum, there's an alignment of stars, and so action can take place in 2026. So my wish is drive those signals into action. Yeah.
I asked for one wish, but there's a lot of wishes.
Sorry, yes.
No worries.
Very eager.
I do want to litigation. You told me, and Abigail, can you briefly share what you did last year? Because, well, actually this year the results just came out with reviews. Would you mind sharing a little bit with the audience?
Yeah, we filed a lawsuit against some fake review brokers in partnership with TripAdvisor that just had a ruling, and we'll continue to find opportunities to do more joint actions, both with partners and with other governments. We've done it with Microsoft, we've done it with Google, we've done it with the Better Business Bureau, and we'll continue to find opportunities to do that.
Thank you very much, Abigail. I think it's a great initiative, and very honestly, I hope to see a lot more global corporations where we really litigate scammers out of business. John, can you share a little bit what would be your wish?
Of course, happy to. Look, at the risk of repeating some of the earlier sentiments, definitely the cross-industry collaboration is key. At the end of the day, these actors take the path of least resistance, and they play, our own disconnects across the industry against us. So they really benefit from any fragmentation that we have today. Look, aside from that, I think that really we spoke a lot about education. That's also a two-way street where, through our own outreach efforts, we can become better educated on what law enforcement are seeing. We sat with, for example, the local law enforcement authority from Oman, and got some really useful, very market-specific insights to what's going on there. So really that outreach and education from our point of view is a huge focus. That extends also to things like our youth safety councils, our safety advisory councils that we do across the globe. Fraud and scam can be very different, across different markets as well. So really just understanding the detailed nuances through those outreach efforts is really a really key focus, and something we'll continue leaning on. I think the other wish list is probably just around kind of clearer industry norms around AI. I know we've got some, cross-industry provenance that we have in terms of content classification, but it's spotty in terms of coverage. Actors go, again, path of least resistance. They'll use AI platforms that are not as easily detectable and do not have as many controls baked in. So what we see is that being exploited as well. So I think just advancing our industry norms on AI by itself, even arguably outside of fraud and scams, is a huge area that we need to push forward on, because we see that being exploited, even when it comes to political misinformation, for example. So it's a huge industry challenge that also plays out from a fraud and scams point of view. So I think the last one, I think, is, for platforms, where we're typically focused on content level badness, that can sometimes hide the extent and damage that, offline fraud and scams do to end users. Typically, we might classify that as, one bad ad or one bad piece of content, right? But the end user impact could be, thousands of dollars, like life savings lost. So really, I think when we think about our business success measures, it's like, are we adequately capturing the scope and scale of the damage that this abuse vector delivers to society? And that's very often where we might have disconnects with regulators, with law enforcement, things like that. So I think just internally making sure we're adequately capturing that, so we can continue to appropriately quantify our efforts in the space and the impact we're making, will be really, really important.
Thank you very much, John. Justin, what is your New Year's wish regarding scam fighting?
There is a story that I wanted to share. Unfortunately, based on time, I don't think I have enough time to be able to do it justice. So, George, I will work with you on sharing this particular story about a young man named James Wood. But certainly, a focus is, I'm going to chime into the education piece of it. Education is key and critical from a telecom perspective. Understanding the use of numbers. Traditionally, people think that numbers are associated with picking up the phone, it's associated with your iPhone, so on and so forth. That's not just only the case. We have a huge amount of numbers that are being injected into the industry based on cellular-based IoT type devices. These are telephone numbers, real telephone numbers that can be used, that can be spoofed, so on and so forth. So educate network PI around how numbers from associated with a SIM, how SIMs then associate with an IMEI to then understand what is the device. That's key and critical. Paul, you talked a little bit about, again, the downgrade associated with numbers. These are key things that we can trigger off of, so on and so forth. But then beyond that is the education to the youth. Education to the youth is key and critical. We talk a lot about money. We talk a lot about the financial aspect, and that is something that we definitely have to continue to drive towards and continue to work towards. But romance baiting that leads to sextortion, that leads to many of these types of things, educating our youth is key and critical. Personally myself, last year, I spoke at 7 schools. So on and off the court, we need to commit to this globally. Speaking to our children, they're interested in what we do. Trust me, you don't have a problem with regards to speaking at schools and them asking questions. But then really about the impacts associated with what they do with social media, how they use social media, how it impacts their lives. And for God's sake, stop sharing videos of yourself. Anyhow, I'll leave it at that. There's a huge amount of stuff that's coming in the telecom industry, and it'll be great to see and work with you guys moving forward.
I look forward to it, Justin, because one of the very sad trends we see is that the scammers have discovered that sextortion is for them a business model. So yes, we need to fight that. Paul, your wish for this year?
Sure. So I'm going to go back to a theme, sound like a broken record that I've said before, but the focus on prevention for me. Traditionally, certainly in the financial side of things, governments have been focused on anti-money laundering, which is, inherently after the fact. In the U.S., we file these suspicious activity reports, can be 60 days after the event. It's all about the forensic analysis. So having us move on the scam prevention side of things is really critical. One, to stop the engagement of the person with the criminal. So how do we stop these scam ads from going up? How do we stop these spoofed phone calls and call ID messages from going forward? And then how do we stop the payment from going forward? So I think, it's a whole of industry, whole of government approach on trying to prevent the scam in the first place, whether it's the engagement, whether it's the ongoing grooming, or whether it's the final payment in the end. How do we stop that from happening in the first place so no one has to go through that terrible event? And that's where I'd like to see the focus. And I think we're starting to see that. I think, countries are shifting, certainly in the UK, in Australia, Singapore, are moving in that space. The US is finally moving more towards the prevention side of things. So that was where I would like to see us focus.
Thank you very much, Paul. Saeed, last but certainly not least, what is your wish for this year?
Actually, if I could make a wish to better fight scams, it would be intensive international cooperation. Today, scams are really local. They often involve criminal money and operation across multiple countries. Faster sharing of information, joint investigations, and coordinating actions with law enforcement and industry partner worldwide. We have to stop scams before they reach victims and expand criminal networks more effectively. So this is, I think, what GASA doing as a network for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Saeed. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but I've learned a lot. I think many of your plans and wishes, there's not one solution, and but maybe share very briefly what our New Year resolutions are from GASA. You all, I think, named international cooperation, and that's what GASA is going to continue doing. We're going to continue bringing all the stakeholders together. We have more than 25 virtual meetups like this one planned for this year. We have the United Nations Fraud Summit, which we're supporting, but also attending, and hope to work together with the 180 governments joining there to see how we can turn the tide on scams. We've had our own summit, so In June, we will be in Lisbon for our European summit. Then in September, we will be in the Bay Area, bringing together all the America stakeholders. And in November, we will be in Thailand, in Bangkok, to bring all the stakeholders together in Asia. Apart from continuing to build the network, which is really our goal for this year, we, as Giacomo was saying, we are moving more and more towards actions. I think the Global Signal Exchange is something I personally am proud of, that together with our members and Oxford Information Labs, we really created a data sharing network which is working. This year, we will launch scam.org, which is using AI to counter AI. So scam.org will help consumers to see, hey, is this a scam or not? But also allow them to get victim support and report a scam. And the reports will, of course, be shared via the Global Signal Exchange to help all of us to better counter scams. We also named raising awareness and user education. Also there, GASA, together with its members, will launch a continuous education platform. We know that awareness campaigns are crucial, but if they're one shot, they work limited. So we're developing a continuous education platform with our members to help people inoculate themselves against scams. And the inoculation idea I very willingly stole from Google, who inspired me in this direction. Finally, we're going to, with our members, going to form more working groups to really define the next solutions we need to bring in the market together, or policy recommendations. And one of the things I think Justin named was, okay, how can we find a better balance between privacy, which is crucial, but also being able to fight scammers? And that's one of the topics we're going to address as an example of a policy recommendation. So with that, I want to thank our panelists and also our participants, and raise the glass on a new year together to fight scams together. And I look forward to working with all of you in the panel and our participants. And thank you very much for joining, and have a very good 2026. Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.